Okay, we'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully more will join in here as they get the opportunity. This is Matt Caddo, a Senior Fellow on Public Policy with the American Kratom Association, and welcome to all of you to our May update on things that are happening around the country with respect to Kratom. Before we get kicked off, just one administrative note. We have solidified the date for our congressional fly-in and congressional briefing. It will, and you can sign up for this on protectkratom.org, and you will see there the information that it will indicate that on June 2nd, the fly-in will occur, and on June 3rd, we will have the congressional briefing that will focus on the current issue that we're facing with respect to 70H and the ongoing policy battle that's occurring with that. But again, it's protectkratom.org. And what we are going to attempt to do is to offer the opportunity for those advocates who would like to get some assistance from the vendors for travel expenses and lodging expenses while they're in DC. And obviously, we will not be able to accommodate everyone who wants to. So sign up, and we're going to allow then the vendors to, as they're able to do so, to provide that assistance. And you can link up on, again, protectkratom.org/register, and you'll be able to get that information. We wanted to focus tonight on the current issue with respect to 70H. And this is a critical thing that's going on right now in the Kratom community. The bottom line, and there cannot be any kind of explanation one way or the other, is that there is no middle ground on natural kratom leaf policy and 70H. None. And there is also no legitimate argument that we should not want to ban any product that with respect to 70H. I hear this. I hear people say, oh, we don't want to ban anything, when in fact the reality is that none of us in this particular situation would want to in any way create any kind of confusion about what we are for and what we are against. And we have influencers in this community, and they should not be doing this, but they're confusing consumers on this very issue. They're doing the same thing that the 70H manufacturers did when their products were introduced in what we're now learning in 2021, where they marketed their products as kratom, deceived consumers, and then played it out as saying, oh, well, it's just the natural version and just a different, more powerful version of all of this. It is silliness for us to be able to pretend, for anyone in the kratom community, any influencer to pretend that, oh, they're the same, and we really don't want to be judging people. We don't want people to feel like that we're trying to cut them out of the availability of any of these products. It is ridiculous for anyone to think that that is a good policy position for anyone to be taking. These influencers are the Pied Pipers leading consumers to danger. Would any of us argue to totally legalize the market for synthetics like fentanyl and nitazines? We know that they're harming people. We know that there are people dying as a result of it. That is true today for 70H. And yet there are well-meaning but completely wrong in terms of that argument. They're being made, arguments being made by some of these influencers. Stop listening to them. Hold them to account. Make sure they understand that you're not going to play the game with them just because they have some within their groups that are advocating for the continued legal availability of 70H products. I also want to address something that I keep hearing. It's disappointing, but in reality, again, one of those things that are not true, and it's being done in order to promote the actual agendas of some of the sub-players in the industry, and that is the criticism of advocates. There is no question that since 2016 that there has been a long, exhausting battle, but I have not seen any dramatic reduction in the number of advocates who are willing to put their names on the line, who are willing to show up at hearings. There are occasions where state legislatures and local governments will provide no realistic notice, or they hold the hearings at impossible times. And there are occasions when you go to these hearings and the witnesses are not even given the opportunity to testify. That happened to me just this past week when I traveled to South Carolina, and I sat through a litany of witnesses that were promoting 70H and against it. And then in the end, they didn't hear any of the advocates, and I wasn't able to speak either. It is disappointing when that happens. But for critics to say, and I'm being specific here with the BEA people who are saying that, oh, we've just lost the enthusiasm within this community. They simply had to sit in that audience of the South Carolina hearing and see the number of people that were advocates for the natural kratom leaf plant. They were the majority of the people that were there. And I see that over and over again. I will not abide, in my opinion, with anyone who wants to, in order to promote their organization, and I'm talking about the BAE group, obviously with Robin Graham, that to me needs an apology. Not try to excuse it, not try to explain, and not have others that surround her saying, oh, what she really meant to say was. That criticism is misplaced. And I, for one, applaud the various kratom advocates that are out there fighting the battle and showing up at these hearings, emailing their legislators and these local government officials, because without them, we would be losing these battles. And we are always in the recruiting more advocates, but to criticize existing ones just to inflate your own organization makes no sense. I can tell you that the state and local battles that we're now having to engage in are all about 70H. If 70H didn't exist, we would probably be at 30 states, maybe more, that had passed the Kratom Consumer Protection Act. But instead, we're having to answer questions, having to stand before legislators and have to explain the difference, to listen to state officials in the executive branch, as I did in Tennessee when I was testifying, and the chief law enforcement agency at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations sat at the next table from me and testified that, in fact, that the kratom was kratom created euphoria, that you couldn't test the difference between 70H and natural leaf kratom. A litany of misrepresentations that materially misled the Tennessee legislature and led to our demise in that. Without 70H being on the table, we wouldn't have had this problem. We would not have lost the state of Tennessee. We would have been able to fight the battle that's legitimate, which is that natural kratom leaf products are safe. The science documents that the FDA's position currently on natural leaf kratom products versus these chemically manipulated 70H products augurs for 70H products to be scheduled under the Controlled Substances Act and not regulated. And yet we hear these people beating their chests and saying, oh, we really should not judge people. We shouldn't call for bans. We certainly wouldn't advocate that people should have access to fentanyl or nitazines. Why do we do it for 70H? Because they're exactly the same. I was at the CHAMP show, which is the Alternative Products Trade Show, this past week. I saw, as I walked from one 70H booth to another, the very products that the 70H advocates are saying they're no longer supporting being on the marketplace. Sublingual tablets that you chew them and they dissolve in your mouth, they bypass your gut, they go right to your mu-opioid receptors through the bloodstream. And yet you'll listen to the 70H advocates saying, oh, we don't support those products. And yet the majority of the products at that show selling to buyers for distribution across the United States where they're currently legal, and that's the kind of product that they're selling. They cannot have it both ways, and yet they're able to do it because of the apologists that are supporting them, claiming, oh, let's not judge, let's not ban things, let's let people make their own informed decisions. And that's the important thing. These decisions are not being made that are informed. In fact, when I talked to the booth attendants at the CHAMP show for 70H products, the overwhelming argument was these are powerful products, far more powerful than kratom. They help you with the pain, with acute and chronic pain. They help you better than kratom does. These are therapeutic claims that are unique to 70H. Now, obviously, if that's the only thing that kratom was used for, we would be subject in the kratom community to the very same kind of accusation, but it's not. We know that among the 9.1% of American people, based on the Grumman Consumer Survey that consume kratom products, that about a third of them use it as a replacement for a cup of coffee for an energy boost and increased focus. That's not euphoria. That's not that quick euphoric high. That's not the fast crash. That's not the addictive qualities. These are products that are consumed by responsibly by consumers that do not have to worry about the safety profile that threatens them when they take 7-OH products. Many of whom were deceived by the 7-OH manufacturers when they tried to claim that they were kratom products, when in fact they're masquerading as very, very safe products when they're very dangerous products. Another third of the kratom consumer population uses it for a mood enhancement and reduce feelings of anxiety. And then is that third category where 7-OH resides exclusively, which is in the management of acute and chronic pain. And the argument that they make is that 7-OH is far more powerful than natural kratom leaf, is the very basis for them having to go through the new drug application process. They cannot be on the market and occupy that space, which is in direct violation of federal law. That the new drug application is required when you focus on therapeutic effects. But here's the interesting thing now. The 7-OH advocates are now claiming that they claim that the gas station heroin tag that's been placed on natural kratom, when in fact it was placed on 7-OH, is the basis upon which you should only sell kratom products in smoke shops where they bar anyone from coming into the shop itself that's under 21 years old. Now think about that. Where do 7-OH products want to be sold? Where is their marketplace? It's in that crowd of 21 and up, and in smoke shops where, because of the power boost of the effects of 7-OH are felt, it's a drug, and that's where they want it to be. It would be the equivalent of an arsonist starting a fire in a store and then showing up to save the kids in the store to be the hero. This is nonsense, and yet it is what we're getting from the 7-OH community, and it's dangerous when it comes right down to it. And they want to act like they're the good guys when in fact they are the ones who deceived from the get-go and created the problem. Many of you have probably seen, and if you've not, you should watch the John Oliver segment where he talked about the 7-OH issue. And he identified clearly some of the very difficult issues in the 7-OH community. And in that interview, when he was looking at the 7-OH manufacturers, he interviewed Vince Sanders first in a segment. I'm sorry, he didn't interview them. He played clips of interviews, the first of which was done in 2024, a year before Vince had previously admitted that the actual market entry had occurred of 7-OH products, which he previously had claimed was in September of 2025. Here, he talked about how the market entry in 2024 was so phenomenal. The sales exploded. They went far beyond what the cannabis products that he was then marketing and had been for 10 years. And he saw 7-OH knock the charts out because he was making huge amounts of money in that particular arena. That's the very quintessential basis of someone who's selling a drug. Then, in a separate segment, there's an interviewer asking Vince Sanders the critical question, and that is, do you not have any safety studies? Critics are saying you don't. And his answer was, no, we don't. Our customers are our safety study. Now, John Oliver appropriately makes a big deal of that because it should be something that's a big deal. You do not use consumers as your guinea pigs in order to market a product, no matter how powerful those sales are. And by the way, there have been kratom innovations in the kratom space where there's not been this phenomenal jump in the product acquisition by consumers. And that's because kratom products are pretty much the same. And you can have little innovative tweaks in terms of the way you deliver them. But this idea that you can introduce this powerful 7-OH product and say, oh, it's the same as natural kratom leaf products, it is a lie. And there's no way that they are the same. I listened, and they also said in this particular segment, as Vince Sanders offered, that there have been no reported deaths from 7-OH. That simply is not true. And the argument that they're making to make it true is just to restate in an echo chamber the same things that they're saying over and over again. But the data is clear. The FDA has identified that there are deaths, and we're seeing every day more and more reports of families who are losing family members to 7-OH, some misled thinking it's kratom, the natural leaf kratom, but clearly is 7-OH. And that is why we need to fight this battle as hard as we can in order to clear up the misconceptions that we're seeing being identified in the marketplace. I attended the South Carolina hearing, and there was a witness, his name is Thomas Beckham, who represented to be a major 7-OH manufacturer with facilities in the state of South Carolina, employing over 100 people and projecting that his increase in the actual number of employees would go to 200, showing this rapid growth in the 7-OH product community. He made the point by his representation that not to worry about this so-called synthetic issue because South Carolina's current Kratom Consumer Protection Act bans synthetics, but that natural kratom and 7-OH are exactly the same. There is no way that 7-OH can be properly characterized as being synthetic. Well, that's a surprise to many scientists who have looked at this, who examined it, but they're playing a semantic game. 7-OH is, they're correct, oxidized, and it can be a natural process, meaning that you could expose it to heat and you could take the kratom leaves and put more and more heat on it. You will never get to the levels of 7-OH that would allow them in a commercially viable way to generate 7-OH products. They have to use chemicals, and that is not a natural product. That is at least a semi-synthetic product, and they can play the game, work the edges, and try to manipulate the English language, but this is a product that is not naturally developed, and yet that's what they sat there and what certainly Mr. Beckham said, and he said and he explained to all of these legislators, you have to understand that 7-OH is naturally produced in the body when they consume kratom, natural kratom leaf products, and the liver converts it into at a rate of 23 to 30%. Now that's an interesting percentage game. If you have 1 unit of a product and you go to 2 units, you have a 100% increase. So what they are saying is the liver naturally converts metrogenine into 7-hydroxymetrogenine. It does so at levels that are proportionate to the content of the 7-OH in the natural leaf products, which has been described accurately as trace levels. That's all it is. And the idea that they can make some equivocation to that being the same for 7-OH. Oh, well, for the 7-OH products that are majority 7-OH hitting the liver like a freight train, and the liver's not even able to process it. And they know that it fights for it, and you get much more 7-OH that is delivered into the body than the natural process that occurs when you take natural kratom leaf. They know this, and yet they try to mislead, confuse, and to actually deceive legislators into thinking that this is just a natural process and nobody should be worrying about it. One of the heart lobbyists in New Hampshire provided testimony, and it was mirrored by Mr. Beckham, and Mr. Cleveland said that he explained to legislators, you have to understand that as evidence of the fact that 7-OH is safe, that the Florida Attorney General's emergency rule on 7-OH, which banned it, was going to lapse, and that as of June 1st of 2026, it would be gone. That was evidence that kratom was safe, that the science had disproven it. Anything but. Everyone who examines the actual things that happened in Florida would know that the battle between the Speaker of the House, and it's a political battle, and the Attorney General resulted in the Speaker of the House stripping out the provision from the AG that bans 7-OH products, the emergency rule. Everybody knows that. There's some question, according to some political newspapers in Florida that there was a personal relationship between the speaker and the lobbyist for the 708 that may have guided his decision to do that. Others say it was because of the animus that exists between the Attorney General and the Speaker of the House. Either way, the provision banning 708 under the emergency rule was stripped, but not because of science, because of politics. And it is well known that in the state of Florida that the Attorney General has the authority, and we understand will act on it, where he will simply reapply a new rule that will in effect ban 708 products. We'll wait to see if that happens, but every expectation is that it will. And the idea that Mr. Cleveland and Mr. Beckham would say to legislators, and mislead them, by the way, that, oh, take it to the bank, it is because 708 cannot meet the scientific standard that's necessary for scheduling. Not true. And I think that's critically important for people to understand. The top story of the day, you probably have seen this, but the President Trump in a Oval Office meeting, kind of laying out his maternal health policy, made a statement with respect to 708, which is now hitting the internet. And what the president said, and he brought it up kind of off the cuff, he said, on another topic, one of the things we're looking very seriously at is natural 708 and getting that approved. 708, and we'll take a look at that very strongly. I think Dr. Oz and everybody, we're looking to see if we can do something there. Now, what did that statement mean? Is it a reflection of a simple mistake that the president made saying, oh, we want to get natural kratom approved? Or did he say we want to get 708 banned as a controlled substance? Or is he simply talking about the information that he had available to them, saying that there is a 708 ban that's being evaluated, but we want to get the natural leaf in terms of a public policy along the way? No one knows at this point, but I think it's fair to say that there's no basis for anyone to make a claim at this juncture that the president was talking about synthetic, semi-synthetic, or chemically manipulated 708 products. He said clearly natural 708, and the only natural 708 that there is found in the kratom plant at natural trace levels, which occur in the original drying of the leaves after they're harvested. What we don't know at this point with any kind of specifics is when the DEA will announce their scheduling of 708, as has been recommended by the FDA and HHS. We'll wait and see. There are rumors flying that it could happen here in just the next week to 10 days. We've heard that story repeatedly. Eventually, there will have to be a decision that is clearly publicly known whether the DEA is going to schedule 708 or whether they will move to a process of simply standing down from it. The betting odds here in Washington is that they will schedule it. We also expect that there will also be, at about the same time, a revision in the FDA and Kratom webpage, which critically needs to be changed because the outdated information that is on the FDA and Kratom webpage needs to be revised in order to accurately reflect the science and the distinction between 708 and natural leaf kratom products. So we look forward to that happening, and I think that it will be a benefit to every kratom consumer. And before we get to the end of this, let me just review some of the key state updates. And I think it's important to take note of where we have defeated bans on kratom. Some of our critics will tout to the end of the earth some of the victories that they have had, and they are few because of, again, misrepresentation, confusion about 708 versus natural leaf kratom, and a lot of misinformation that's being peddled by some of the anti-kratom groups. But the fact of the matter is there are specific bans that were defeated this year. Utah started out as a ban. It was defeated. The state of Washington had a ban bill. It was defeated. Arizona, Iowa, South Carolina, Virginia, Minnesota, Michigan so far, New Jersey, New Hampshire so far, Delaware so far, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Missouri, Georgia, Florida, South Dakota, and Illinois so far. All states that have kratom bans that have been presented and they're being evaluated by the legislature. And some of those states, the so far states, are kind of in their last legs, and we hope to hear clearly where we are. Where we did lose was in Tennessee. We lost in Tennessee. Matthew Davenport, which is the perfect example of a family purports that their son died of a kratom overdose. And yet the autopsy report is clear, unambiguous, that this kid died of clearly of poly drug use, and the principal catalyst for the death was an extraordinary high level of Benadryl that caused the death. And by proportion, kratom really wasn't and could not accurately be called or characterized as the cause of death. We lost in Kansas. I think here it was more difficult to figure out exactly where the legislature got sideways, other than there wasn't a lot of discussion or information other than what was provided by the Kansas Bureau of Investigations. Again, misinformation. I sat and testified in the hearing where the Kansas Bureau of Investigations stood up and said, "We can't test for this stuff," and of course you can. That kind of misinformation obviously misleads legislators, and that's where we really have problems. We lost in Kentucky, but then got a lifeline. And that lifeline is that the governor properly recognized that in the last day of the session, a kratom ban was slipped into a revenue bill without a single hearing, with it no public testimony and no legislator evaluation of whether or not this ban should have actually taken effect. And so the governor is inclined to allow for the enactment date to be pushed by a year, so that we can go through a legislative session where all of regular order hearings can be held, scientific evidence can be presented, and the impacts of on kratom, a kratom ban, can be articulated by kratom consumers. So we think that that's going to be really important. We have some challenges ahead as well. We know in the state of Nevada that the Board of Pharmacy conducted a work session on kratom. The interesting thing about that work session is that the advocates for the ban dominated the actual discussion in the work session. And when you had an expert like Jack Henningfield present his information, he got 3 minutes and no questions. And then it was a unanimous vote. And that was sort of the disappointing construct of the way that they evaluated kratom. And of course, the Board of Pharmacy in Nevada has had a long-standing issue with kratom where they wanted to ban it. And we're going to fight back on that, and we'll go through the same process. There will be a full hearing on the proposed ban at the Board of Pharmacy level, and then we'll go to the Legislative Administrative Rules Committee for an evaluation as to whether it moves forward or not. We have a similar situation in Ohio, but a glimmer of hope there, in that the 70H rule, which is now permanent, has gone through the legislative process, or the hearing process and the legislative process, and it's expected that it will be enacted there as a 70H ban. The proposed rule, regular order rule on banning metrogeny, has not even commenced yet, and so we think that there may be some room there for negotiations before we have to even go through that process. We know that we're at risk in Minnesota because we have a situation in Minnesota. We had the bill that was passed that put kratom at 21 and under being banned, and we have a commitment from the same sponsors that they're going to put more robust regulations around it. Great step in Minnesota, because now it legalizes kratom above the age of 21. Going to be very hard for the administrative agencies there to enforce kratom bans the way that they have been doing in the past couple of months. Then Michigan. And Michigan's a fascinating case of where politics intersecting with Hollywood can go wrong. Because we know that Speaker Hall in the state of Michigan was influenced by Patty Wheeler doing her documentary. And to the extent that when they held the House vote, the Speaker invoked a rarely used rule that forced all legislators to be in their seats, and they could not leave until the vote had been taken, and Patty Wheeler sat as the grand matriarch over the legislature while the speaker forced through a ban bill. The stench of that procedure, along with serious questions about whether the ban is appropriate, has now led to a very robust discussion in the state Senate. And I think that we have the real opportunity to make sure that that goes away. Those are the updates that we've had, and I know that we're going to have a number of questions on this, and I'm glad to go through those questions as much as we can. And I'm going to pull them up right now, and we'll start working through them as we go forward. Now, you can do this in the chat or in the Q&A. Let me start with those. I said. So Rand says, my question, HF 3453, this is in Minnesota, was signed into law. This is great news. 1 week to go in the session. Do you think we're in the clear here? I just answered, I think so. I think that there's always danger when the legislature is in session. So we're going to be watching it carefully. But the sponsors of the ban bill in the state of Minnesota have already stood down, and I think that we're in good shape here going forward. And then Rand also asked about the president saying he's looking at protecting natural 7-OH. We think he means natural kratom leaf, but we're going to clarify that and work forward on it as we go forward. Nicholas asked, I've had a couple of questions regarding Kansas and California. Kansas scheduled 7-OH, and I heard they made an amendment permit. That is true. Is there any way to reverse this or try again next year? Absolutely, we can try again next year. We were told by the governor's staff that it was a very close call for her. She was not happy with some of the processes that were employed there. There were some interesting nuanced arguments that some people in the state made, that they didn't want to see kratom signs up around the state when they had the World Cup soccer coming into town. We're going to be back at it next year because we think that it was not appropriately done. Then in regards to California, I saw a positive report out of Los Angeles where the county health department supported keeping natural leaf legal. Do you have any additional information how this or California situation will go with AB 1088? AB 1088 is the bill that was sponsored by Assemblywoman Baines, and it passed the House unanimously, and it now is being scheduled for a hearing in June before the Senate Health Committee. And we've had great conversations with committee staff and with the members. We think that we're going to see this move quickly there in California. It's critically important that that happens because you have a situation where the California Department of Public Health has decided that the current language in the FDA and Kratom webpage allows them to put a ban on all kratom products in California because the intersection between California law that relies upon the federal law with respect to adulterated products allows them to ban kratom. And so we obviously want to get that language changed on the FDA and Kratom webpage, and that would undermine what California is doing right now. They're wrong, and that's just where we are. The Los Angeles County Health Department has been receptive. I don't know that we're totally in the clear there. We've worked closely with them. I've got to give credit to and I think this is true across the country with Global Kratom Coalition and the Botanics for Better Health and Wellness. We're working cooperatively together. I think we're able to get good advocacy activity there. And kudos to Andrew Culpa and to Matt Lowe for working hard with us in these areas, because that partnership really has provided big dividends for us. 1088, we hope, will be heard in June, and we can move to the floor of the Senate in order to get that passed. Adam says, can you comment on President Trump's statement? I've done that. Again, confusion about what natural 7-OH is. The only natural 7-OHs I mentioned is the trace amounts that occur in the in the natural kratom leaf plant. And Byron agrees with me. We need the KCPA in Kansas. Absolutely do. Nicholas asked regarding 1088 in California, will there be a preemption for banned cities? Also, will CDPH Crave lawsuit affect 1088 or the future of kratom? The lawsuit potentially could cover it, but it's the central issue that is being advocated for by the Department of Public Health is the same one that they put into the lawsuit. And so the legislature's instinct properly should be to rein in the overregulation of this product. And we think that there's sufficient evidence for that to happen. I think there's a great respect for Assemblywoman Bain. I think we have a real shot at getting the 1088 that would, I'd be, if I were on the Department of Public Health side, I'd be more concerned about what's happening in the legislature than we should be concerned about what's happening on the legal front there with the Department of Public Health, because we can knock them out in a skinny minute. Rand asked, is there a current ban risk in Arizona due to last minute bill insertions? Yes. The current situation is that the House sponsor of the KCPA, which will strengthen the existing KCPA, has made the commitment that he is not going to allow the bill to proceed if they A, put a ban in, or B, they put horrible restrictions on the sale of kratom products that are designed to be an effective shadow ban. Excuse me, I just was diagnosed with pneumonia, so I'm struggling a little bit. So we're looking forward to that bill, the strengthened KCPA, passing in Arizona, or it will be withdrawn one way or the other. So I don't think we're at much risk right now for a ban. Those bills have been tossed aside, and I think the only bill that's really has the chance is Representative Ginn's bill that is a strengthened KCPA. Answered Nicholas there. Gary says Georgia approved natural kratom and is going to ban 7-OH products. Yes, it's going behind pharmacy counters, which I do not approve of because of the possible monopoly on kratom leaf powder, but still available to buy the powder online. Not sure where you think the ban in Georgia came from. So think of two sources of the ban, and then I'm going to explain where the ban is not in effect. One is trial lawyers, and trial lawyers have a puppet in the form of Representative Townsend. Representative Townsend started out with a ban proposal because that's what his puppet masters want him to do. He clearly was not going to have a chance at getting the ban bill through because the legislative committee had heard enough evidence from witnesses that was not the right public policy. And so what Representative Townsend did was, in my opinion, astounding. When he showed up at the hearing, and I'm sitting in the second row of that hearing room, and he had a substitute amendment to the bill. Now, the way that the process works in Georgia is that when you have a substitute amendment, it pops up on the screens of each of the legislators at the committee so they can see it. And then it is supposed to be publicly available so that we can watch it on our phones. We searched for it and we could not find it. Neither could the members of the committee. So there was obviously a glitch, whether intentional or otherwise, on the actual amendment that Representative Townsend wanted to present. And he was under extreme pressure by the committee to come up with something that was more reasonable than what he'd had before. He was asked by the committee chair, tell us what the significant differences are in your proposed amendment. And Representative Townsend went on to describe generally what those changes were. And we listened to them. We didn't like some of them. The one that he left out, and this is where I think that if a lobbyist did what Representative Townsend did, they would face criminal charges because you cannot lie to a legislative body. And while I suppose there's an argument to say that Representative Townsend didn't lie explicitly, when asked to describe the major points of his substitute amendment, what he left out was that the only kratom that could be sold in the state of Georgia was kratom materials that were derived from kratom plant material grown in the United States. Who's kidding who here? Of course, you cannot grow enough kratom in the United States to match the demand in Georgia, let alone the rest of the country. So what he did, I think, is actionable by the legislature, and certainly his colleagues should say he can't be trusted when he's asked that specific question and then delivered that ridiculous answer that failed to include a dramatic amendment that would have been a ban on kratom products. Now, he is he lost. And so there is no Townsend bill that either regulates or bans kratom. It didn't make it through. As a consolation prize, the speaker appointed Representative Townsend to be the chair of a blue ribbon panel that's supposed to look at the effects of kratom sales on youth in Georgia. Now, you know what the front and center example is going to be, and that's the Walker County schools in northern Georgia, where the report was issued that 5 middle schoolers fell sick and they were taken to the emergency room. And then the emergency room released the conclusion. All of the doctors, so they had 5 kids, actually 6, I think. One other showed up. A parent brought them in. 5 were transported from the school. They the all of the doctors conferred and all of them concluded that this was definitely kratom, not maybe, not suspected, definitely kratom. We learned that because we FOIA'd, they have another name for it down there, but the Freedom of Information Act for the school district, and we got the documents. And that's what they said. We called the Walker County Sheriff and asked him if he would consider sending the material that had been recovered as evidence at the scene to the University of Florida lab for testing to determine what exactly was in the product that was consumed by the kids. Obviously, the sheriff wanted to know if it was a kratom product because it was illegal to sell in the state of Georgia at the time of the acquisition of this product for kids. You couldn't sell to anyone that was a minor. And so obviously he had an answer. He had a question about that. And so he agreed to send them to University of Florida for testing. In that lab, they tested for kratom and found none. The so-called definitive response by those doctors, that group of doctors in the emergency room at the hospital in Walker County, who said it was definitely kratom. They tested for 116 other drugs, and there were no other drugs, none. What they found was these kids had quantity of sugar dots, candy dots, and that created what's called a dumping syndrome, which evidences itself in terms of dizziness, rapid heartbeat, vomiting, nausea, all of the symptoms that these kids showed up at the hospital with. One had actually passed out. And the Mayo Clinic verifies that that's what the dumping syndrome symptoms are. And so it will be an interesting time for us to sit with Representative Townsend chairing the committee to see if he allows that evidence to be presented when it's there. So I think it'll be an interesting time there in Georgia. But when I say trial attorneys, the trial attorneys have been working with Representative Townsend for the last 3 years. They have a specific set of regulations they want, to ban, if not ban, to get the following effective bans, because it helps their court cases against kratom manufacturers for what they allege to be wrongful death claims. And so, you have Representative Townsend is just their puppet. Now, when I confronted him with that fact, he goes, "Oh, no, I don't care." I asked him a question. I said, "I know you can't answer because you have to go check with Matt Wetherington, the trial attorney." "Oh, no, Mac, I don't do that. I don't talk to those people like that. You're wrong." And I said, "Okay, then the evidence is the infamous picture when testifying before the Senate Health Committee on his bill. He was asked a question by one of the Senate committee members about his bill, and he was dumbfounded. And Matt Wetherington got up from his seat as obviously a bystander, walked up and put his hand up like this and told Representative Townsend the answer. Now, if that isn't the proof positive that Wetherington has no idea what his bill does, and he had to get the advice from the real author, which is Matt Wetherington, who's a trial attorney, I don't know. So, and an interesting kind of thing. So it'll be some fun times, I guess, in Georgia as we go forward. Currently, there was no new law passed in Georgia this year. Michael asked, what do you make of Trump firing Marty McCary? That's not finalized yet. I mean, obviously, the alligators are circling. It's not typical for that kind of very public lynching going on in Washington, and usually it's more subterranean, but it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. On the assumption that Commissioner McCary is going to be fired or gets a chance to resign, it doesn't mean that the change in the FDA's posture on naturally kratom versus 7-OH will change. That's a policy that was obviously influenced heavily by HHS Secretary Kennedy, and I don't think that they could stand to retreat from that. So I think that that's something that obviously we will have to play out and see how it works. Taylor said 2 questions. I'm in late 20s, have a child, wife, and work 50 hours a week, and can't make it to hearings unless I know weeks in advance because I'm usually busy. How can I help more besides the normal written testimony? I feel bad for not showing up to HB 587 and SB 299 in Ohio. Well, first, Taylor, thank you. Your emails make a difference. Phone calls make a difference. And I don't think anyone in the kratom advocacy community ought to be in any way demonized or criticized because they aren't able to do what you've just described because of your family circumstances. I can tell you that I thought it was horrific that you had that criticism and I know they tried to explain it away on the so-called Kratom Gals podcast when you had Robin Graham say, the advocates just ought to get off their butts. Untrue. I applaud every advocate, whether you do emails or whether you do phone calls. Those are important things. So don't feel bad about it. Just stay in the saddle and keep fighting. Don't have to feel bad at all. And then the second question, are you feeling good, bad, or neutral about Ohio? I'm feeling really good about Ohio. I think that the fact that we're at this juncture, we've got some legislation that's moving through the Ohio legislature. The Board of Pharmacy has not started their formal rulemaking procedure on natural metrogeny. We're obviously going to have an occasion to go to the JCAR committee, which is the Joint Committee on Administrative Rulemaking, and we'll be able to make our case there if necessary. But I think we're going to keep pushing along this way. But thank you very much, Taylor, for all the work that you do and your support. Shell asked if we're safe in Mississippi with the KCPA being signed. Yes, for now. No, we're never safe because the creative work that's being done by the anti-kratom people is something that we have to be ever vigilant on. So while we're safe this year in Mississippi, we're going to be fighting again there next year along the way. Bob asked, is 2% 7-OH a harmful product? Let me clarify what the 2% level in 7-OH that was first identified in our Kratom Consumer Protection Acts in 2019, before 7-OH products entered the marketplace. When we evaluated what the levels of 7-OH were in the natural kratom plant material in consultation with scientists, what we found was that none could be greater than 2%, unless it is then chemically manipulated or semi-synthetically derived or synthetically derived. You can't get to that level. And so 2% is not the absolute standard. It says anything above that is a problem. The real standard ought to be 1 milligram per serving. So if you have anything at 2% or less, is it a harmful product? I would say no, because that is the level at which it naturally converts at the highest level from natural conversion. It's really not a problem. Benjamin, you've raised your hand. I'm gonna hit you. Hopefully that elevates you to be able to talk. And if support can help us with this, because you've been persistent, Benjamin, fire away. You have to unmute yourself.
I've been talking to law enforcement on social media, trying to get the word out there. There's just so much misinformation on social media, and I just feel like that's like a really valuable thing right now to get out there, method to get our message out.
I agree. If you can engage with, particularly in the local communities in the states, with law enforcement officials, they are the most powerful enemy that we have when they testify and say we should ban this stuff, because the more they know, the more they understand the distinction between natural leaf kratom and synthetically or semi-synthetic or chemically manipulated 7-OH. And remember, there's a lot more on the market now. It's not just 7-OH, it's sudandoxil. And then beyond sudandoxil, they have these MIT 8, 10, 12, 16, 18. And then beyond that, you have the MGM 15, 14, 15 and 16. And they're totally chemically derived. So Benjamin, great effort, and I encourage everyone to do what you just described. Get engaged at the local level and at the state level with your law enforcement people to educate them. And it maybe you have to be persistent, but just call them up, chase them. I've talked to many law enforcement officials across the country doing exactly that. Just find them, and the first level is when you see them say something on a Facebook post or a social media post. That's the way you find them and say, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about it," and take that opportunity. So thank you very much for your doing that, Benjamin. Then continuing on, Alexander says, "Do you think the removal of Martin McCary will be negative?" I think I've answered that. First, I think that we're.
You hear me? I didn't know it was going to put my voice on like.
So who is this? So thank you very much for.
I didn't know it was going to put the audio on. I was like, dude, I thought it was a chat question. I don't know how to answer.
All right. Well, thank you. You can go ahead and stand down now, but thank you very much, Benjamin. So we're there on that issue. On Marty McCary, again, I think I've answered that, and I think you're right that McCary, the Commissioner McCary, was pretty nuanced about it, but he was not nuanced about how he felt about natural leaf kratom. He made it clear over and over again. Shannon says, "I'm in Michigan. Other than making calls, or anything I can do, is there specific science I can send to senators?" Yes, I think every phone call you make and every email you send to the senators is critically important to just reinforce that the ban bill that was passed by the House Speaker cracking his whip was the wrong thing to do, and absolutely stay in working hard at getting these state senators to stay in the position right now that they're in, which we think is to work through on this. Kim says, "My concern if we continue to demonize 7-OH, some have already made the leap that it is so dangerous and risky, we must remove the source of the plant. Has this been considered?" Absolutely, it's been considered. And Kim, with all respect, that's not the right way to look at this. There is no room, as I said at the outset, for there to be people that have created out of whole cloth a whole new product, and they're demonizing the kratom plant. They're the ones who entered the marketplace deceiving consumers, saying it was kratom. They're the ones who manipulated the marketplace to create products that were sold under the guise of kratom that captured and addicted millions of people, certainly hundreds of thousands of people, that now justify their marketplace. So I don't feel that there's any room for people to say, "Oh, let's just let them do it." So that's my opinion on that. And if so, what's the balance? There isn't any balance. This is it's like I said at the outset, we wouldn't advocate for fentanyl because it's synthesized, or the other products that are now killing people to be not scheduled because they're dangerous. And according to the FDA, these are full-blown opioids. 7-OH is a full-blown opioid, not to mention sudandoxil and all the other follow-on products that I've talked about. What should make you nervous, in my opinion, is that you have people that have no scruples that are out there advocating for products that they know are opioids, and yet they excuse it by saying, "Oh, but it's helping people." And they really have the pathway that is readily available to them to simply file as a new drug application to go onto the market. What they could also do is what kratom vendors have done, manufacturers have done, is to apply for, under the DSHEA Act, a new dietary ingredient notification. But 7-OH can't do that because their whole claim is therapeutic benefits as opposed to a dietary supplement or botanical supplement that the DSHEA Act is designed to do. So I think that the clarification about these two products is one's legal, one's natural, one has limitations on the alkaloid content of the products, and one is a semi-synthetic or chemically manipulated product that is harming people. That's the distinction, and I think that's the best way to look at it. Um, Byron says, here in Kansas, they passed on the back end of an omnibus bill that was going to pass. How can we band together here in Kansas or nationwide? Well, we're doing both. We're going to be fighting, excuse me, we're going to be fighting next year in Kansas to bring the bill back, and hopefully we'll get something done. Deborah asked the same thing about Tennessee. We made our best case to the governor. Uh, we have had conversations with leading legislators in Tennessee that said they wish they had known about the autopsy findings with respect to Matthew Davenport. We thought we did a pretty good job of showing that. I think in the rush of business, maybe some legislators missed it, but more importantly, legislators are now hearing about the hundreds of thousands of Kansas consumers that are now blocked from and criminalized by this bill. And so I think there's an opportunity for us to have a more robust discussion in the next legislative session going forward here. Stephen asked, is there a way for people who cannot get to DC to support advocates who can be there alongside vendors? Yes, and this is, I should have mentioned this. There are many occasions in past fly-in days where some of the advocates share their resources to select one of their group and help them fund coming to DC. It's an expense, obviously. So we encourage you to do that. We have some vendors hopefully will sponsor it. There's no way that we can sponsor as many advocates who obviously would like to come to the fly-in. And so for those that are able, willing, and wanting to do it, for those that aren't able to take the time or resources or can't take off work, please support other advocates that are going and help them out financially. I think that would be a great thing to do. Angela says, thank you for all the great news. Well, I'm glad we were able to deliver it. When I say there's a glimmer of hope in Ohio, did you mean just to ban 7OH only, or are there new developments threatening natural kratom recently? What I meant, first off, 7OH is banned in Ohio under the new emergency rule by the Board of Pharmacy. The glimmer of hope is that the regular rulemaking, it was not an emergency rule that was filed by the Board of Pharmacy. They may not proceed with that. That's the glimmer of hope. And it's largely because of the legislative efforts that we're making to develop a fully rationalized KCPA structure that allows for the proper regulation of kratom in the state of Ohio. Stephen asked, do we have a date on AB 1088? It's early June, I'm told, but we'll be able to update that as we go forward. Dion makes a great statement. California Department of Public Health has gone rogue. They have. I mean, this is what bureaucrats do. And when they're left to their own devices without any restraints, they go on it. And Dion's made exactly the correct point on this. And so thank you, Dion, for doing that. And thank you for all the great work that you do throughout the industry and advocacy community. David says, what are your thoughts on the status of natural kratom leaf legality in Illinois? Hopefully there's some Illinoisans in the Zoom call. I hope you are too. I know that there are local bans, but the momentum at the state level appears to be toward a KCPA. I think that's true. I think we're making progress in this area. We want regulations. The matter is referred back to a rules committee. I believe as a lifelong resident of Cook County, I'm always worried about corruption. Understood. And we're working hard as best we can in order to proceed there in Illinois. It's a complex procedure because there are lots of legislators involved, but I think we're unified now as we go forward. I see that Craig has raised his hand, and he actually is working there closely. So I'm going to see if I can get Craig to. Craig, unmute yourself when you've got the floor.
I believe I did. I actually was just waving. I didn't mean to do that. But the fact is, yes, no. Illinois is I think moving towards a very real possibility of passing the KCPA. I will just comment that I was at a hearing in Plainfield, Illinois last week, where they were trying to pass a ban on all forms of kratom, and we were successful. Allison Smith was there as well, and we were successful in getting them to put it off for a couple of weeks and get a little more education. I spent about 45 minutes on the phone with the police chief this morning trying to do just that. and they seemed like they were at least open to listening to it. And I think that's the way you have to deal with law enforcement. Their biggest issue coming back to us as well, the FDA hasn't approved it. And I said, basically, well, they haven't disproved it either. Illinois is playing whack-a-mole with all the different communities that are trying to pass things and not pass things. And if we get there in front of them and explain what's going on, we're getting at least positive responses to giving us the time to talk.
Well said, and thank you, Craig. Craig's with CBD Kratom, is a great advocate for us, and we appreciate the work he's doing, particularly in these local governments, which are obviously problematic to get to. And sometimes, like in the States, the hearings pop up quickly, and it's playing a little bit of game of whack-a-mole, and it requires people to be there. And Craig's a great advocate, and we appreciate all his work on it. Misty asked for an update on the Louisiana KCPA. Bill's been filed by Representative Amadeo. We're grateful for that. We're going to try to unwind this. It's a little bit of an education campaign explaining now why did we do it in the first place. And if I were going to answer that question, the answer is simple. You can look at on our website, you can look at the AKA presentation at the Champ Show, and I show the video of Representative Leo, who was the House sponsor of the Kratom ban bill, and she was asked by a fellow colleague of hers, "What about these synthetics?" And Representative Leo said, "Oh, there's no such thing as a synthetic." And whoever told, now this was in the end of May of 2025. She said, "Anybody that tell the lobbyist that told you that I was born at night but not last night, there is no such thing as a synthetic." And then 2 months later, you had Commissioner McCary and Speaker Kennedy, I'm sorry, not Speaker Kennedy, Secretary Kennedy, stand before the American people and say they wanted to recommend the banning of synthetic 7-OH. Now, if there's no such thing as a synthetic product, I don't know what to tell you. So that's really a problem going away. So we're hopeful that through a combined education process and correcting the record on this, that we can undo that ban and come up with a reasonable regulatory scheme on Kratom. So Misty, thanks for asking the question. Glenn, you raised your hand. I'm going to give you the floor for just a minute. We want to keep going here quickly as we can because I want to wrap it up. Unmute yourself. Glenn, you've got to unmute yourself. All right, Glenn's not able to do that. So let's keep going here until he figures that out. Mary asked, there's been quite a bit of negative media attention against Kratom in Minnesota. Could that affect the risk of a Kratom ban? I understand and we're trying to work with the media as best we can. We're fighting it, but right now I think we're on the upward trend here in Minnesota. We're going to get a full-blown KCPA in the next session. So Glenn, looks like you unmute yourself. You've got the floor. So Glenn, you've got to speak. All right, he must be having some problems. Gary says Townsend asked to meet with me. Gary, God love you. Take advantage of that. I mean, every voice that he gets in his ear, he needs to hear it. And because he likes to just, hear no evil, see no evil. That's the way he operates. And so please take advantage of that. And if you need any help, I'm glad to join you. If you like. I've had many conversations with him. Chris asked, do we have clarity on the new Utah law, specifically online sales in the Utah, and what is the current conclusion? Under the law that was passed in the state of Utah, there is a ban on any sale of products in the state of Utah, including online sales. It's based on what I'm hearing, it's going to be an enforcement issue. And obviously, they're going to have to sort that out. But right now, technically, you are banned from sales in Utah currently, and we're going to hopefully fix that next year. Because right now in Utah, you can buy it at a smoke shop. It's craziness, and yet that's what we came up with because of Senator Mike McKell, who obviously is beyond the pale, in my opinion. John Shinholzer, you're good to go. And let's see if we can get you up here so you can. So can I get help getting John up here so he can unmute himself and go? John, I'm trying. I'll see if the support team. Oh, here you go. So
There you go. You got me now?
Oh, we got you.
Hey, I noticed I Googled who potential FDA replacements might be, and I see where Brett Garor is a possibility. Would that be a good thing?
So Dr. Joie, when he did the evaluation of kratom, when the 2018 recommendation that had been made by the FDA to the DEA to schedule, and literally on the day before they were going to publish it in the Federal Register, he drove to the Reagan National Airport, caught the DEA administrator, Udom Dillon, in line to get on the plane and delivered the withdrawal letter to him based on a very comprehensive analysis that Dr. Joie had made, where he determined that the evidence and data that was needed to support a ban on natural leaf kratom products was insufficient. He called it embarrassingly poor evidence and data. So the answer to your question, John, is yes. I think he would be a fair-minded, qualified individual. And looked at now from 2018 to today, what we know conclusively is that natural leaf kratom safety has been, the documentation has been enhanced, and it is the 7-OH that has emerged as a problem. So I think that Dr. Joie would be an excellent friend to us. He's fair-minded. When he was first called by the chief of staff at HHS to take a look at kratom, his response was to the chief of staff, "I don't know what kratom is, but if the FDA says it should be banned, they're probably right." And the chief of staff, his name was Brian Harrison, said, "Well, I don't like when I asked them the questions about their death data, I didn't get a good answer. And so I'd like you to look at it." And so to his credit, Dr. Joie did a real evaluation and concluded that it was insufficient evidence for a scheduling recommendation, and he withdrew it. So I think that if Dr. Joie is on the plate, that would be terrific. If McCary gets booted, which is possible, obviously, we'll see what happens.
Thank you.
Great. So Bob says, I believe you came to South Dakota and supported a 2% limit of 7-OH in kratom. I'm a pharmacist. Are you willing to tell me that kratom with no more than 2% 7-OH is a safe product with no 7-OH toxicity? Bob, no, I'm not going to tell you that. What I'm going to tell you is that any product that has a kratom product that has more than 2% of 7-OH in it, that it clearly, absolutely clearly is a manipulated product chemically or synthetically derived. That's what I'll tell you. And what I can tell you is that anything below that level has a much lower safety profile for within acceptable tolerances recognized by the FDA, that naturally occurring levels of 7-OH in natural leaf products are not going to present a safety hazard of any significance. Everything potentially can be dangerous, as you know, as a pharmacist. So in this particular case, when you look at the dose finding study that was done by the FDA, contrary to what Senator McKell in Utah said was funded by industry, that was a lie. It was funded by, and he told that lie to his fellow legislators. What we have today is that dose finding study determined that at 12 grams, they had no significant adverse event, only nausea, which was also experienced by the placebo cohort. So, Bob, I think your point is well taken that anything can, in fact, pose a potential threat to the safety of a consumer, which is why, and I urge every consumer to look at the labeling on a product, because the labeling requirements that are mandated by federal law for the manufacturer of whatever product form that the kratom product is in, whether it's a powder or a capsule or a pill, very few of those, or if it's in a tincture, that it has to have a recommended serving size backed up by the safety data that shows there's a reasonable basis for safety. So you've made a great point, Bob. I agree with you, but I'm telling you that all products have risks. The risk levels above 2% are dramatically higher, and that's why I think that they're subject to the recommendation for scheduling that was made by the FDA and HHS in last year. So Byron asks, so Mac, last question. I order mine online, so I have to travel to get it. Correct? If we're talking about Utah, that's correct. I can't recommend you do anything that's going to violate the law. Um, and Miri asks, is the AK planning on fighting the Sterling Heights, Minnesota ordinance directly? We're fighting every place we can get people activated. So I don't know the specific answer, but between the Global Kratom Coalition, the Botanics for Better Health and Wellness, and the AK, we're trying to get to every local government to where they pop up with these kinds of bans. Nicholas says, do I have any updates on Wisconsin at all? Thank you for that question. I just talked to Heidi Sikora earlier today on a text exchange. We had developed a theory that we could challenge the current ban on kratom in Wisconsin by the Controlled Substances Board because of their acknowledgement that kratom doesn't meet the 8-factor criteria. We were asked by some legislative leaders to stand down and let them solve it. They haven't done it. And so I think that we're ready to go back to that strategy of filing for a hearing, in which has to be granted within a certain number of days, where we can make the scientific case for kratom to be deregulated. And given that they've made that statement publicly and just said to the legislature, "You fix it," the legislature just hasn't reacted very well. So that's the best I can answer on that. Michael asks, is there a way we could conduct a professional, legit survey to question teens with reliable results and show statistical proof that kratom is not popular amongst youth, and compare it to things like vaping, edibles, underage alcohol, etc.? It is seriously needed, in your opinion. Michael, I agree with you. So here's the challenge. First is resources, money to do it. And there's competing research money protocols that are out there. I like this idea of being able to get a panel of kids to determine whether or not they truly are attracted to kratom, or what kind of kratom, so-called kratom products. Obviously, they're going to be attracted to 7-OH products because, as one of the vendors at the Champ Show explained to me, that the difference between natural leaf kratom and 7-OH is 7-OH knocks you on your ass. And the only people that are looking for that kind of product are drug addicts or teens. And so I think that's a great suggestion. I'm going to raise this issue with some of the scientists that we work with and see what they think about it. But thank you for the suggestion, and we'll follow up on it. Dana asks, are there people available to teach others how to advocate? This is new to me, and I often feel lost and confused. Great question, Dana. Thank you. We have a regular group of advocates who are well suited, that John Chinholzer was on earlier, Laura Romney, Heidi Sikora. I think it'd be great to have sort of a advocacy training session, and we will put that on the agenda and give you that opportunity along the way. So Kevin says in Kansas was more the Board of Pharmacy than the KBI. Good point. The Board of Pharmacy didn't testify in the hearing Kevin, that I attended, but the KBI did. But you may be absolutely right that that's the case. And so, that's one of the issues that I think we will look at in the next go around. Bob comes back, the pharmacist, and he said, yes, but they spike it up that level, the 2% level. You may be right, and certainly anything that's not naturally occurring, which is why I think, and our new recommendation is that you cannot have more than 1 milligram of 7-OH in a serving size, and that would help control this. I think that the fact is that when you take a product that has 2% or less of 7-OH, it doesn't get you that euphoric high that 7-OH does, and so that may be the differentiating factor. But it's a great point, Bob. I agree with you, and I think we could. I'm going to factor that in some of our thinking about this going forward. Nicholas says, in Texas, how can we safeguard adult access to natural kratom here? Lieutenant Governor is going after hemp. Kratom is also in the crosshairs. Excuse me. So Nicholas, here's a great news. The Lieutenant Governor, I think, has been participating in some direct discussions with us about kratom. I think he's going to be on our side. He wants to regulate it, and so we're not going to have the exposure that we had with him 2 years ago in the last session, when he was looking at hemp, and I think we've educated him better than he has been in the past. Bob says, what is the percentage strength of metrogene in kratom? This depends on the product formulation, but in the natural kratom leaf, metrogene makes up about 66% of the, on average, of the kratom plant material of the 50 some alkaloids. There are some leaves that are harvested too soon. Farmers over there in Indonesia want to get money, and so they pick them too soon, and they have a lower MIT count, higher speciacilitine, which is problematic. But that's why the vendors test for the MIT content, and they're not going to take some of the bad stuff. David, very long question. I'll try to get through it. I have been actively engaged in state and federal advocacy, including filing formal grievances with the Commonwealth Ombudsman and the Kentucky Board of Pharmacy regarding 708 scheduling and the resulting medical abandonment of paying patients, as well as submitting public comments to the FDA and conducting direct outreach to Senator Berg and Representative Rokes. Given this experience, how can we best leverage these specific localized efforts and individual legislative pushbacks to strengthen the AK's national messaging during the upcoming congressional DC Visits Day? So, David, thank you. I think the first top answer is, if you can make it, visiting your offices from your state of that congressional delegation, both in House and Senate, is critically important. Love to have you do that and be here to do it. I think your experience in working in the way that you've described is fabulous. And I think you can be kind of a leader among the advocates as you have those discussions with these legislators in this fly-in day. So I think that's terrific. And so I think going forward, that will be something we can work on. Certainly we'll do a training of the advocates who are able to come to DC before we actually deploy on that day. And so there you have it. So Craig just reports back that the standard comment from the law enforcement is the FDA hasn't approved it. That's true. And of course, the answer that I give, and this is equally true, is that you can walk into a dietary supplement store and you'll see hundreds of products that weren't approved for any medical use by the FDA and yet are used by people to maintain their health and wellness. And the number nationally is thousands of dietary supplement products that are in that same category. So just saying that in fact this hasn't been approved for medical use doesn't mean a lot, and isn't required unless it's a new drug application. Bob asked, "Can I have your email offline? I'd like to understand the 2% calculation." Yeah, it's mhatto@americankratom.org. Bob, I'd love to have the conversation with you. mhatto@americankratom.org. Bob says metrogene is the primary active alkaloid in natural kratom leaf, typically consisting of 0.5% to 1.5% of the dry weight of the leaf. Yeah, you've gone into fairly technical area. I agree. I understand completely what you're saying. When you start to create products that are based on natural kratom leaf material, the percentage of metrogene in the raw leaf material is in that roughly 5 to 15 milligrams per gram of powder. The issue is where 708 comes into play, and I think that's the difficult issue that we have to sort out on a product formulation basis. But love to engage more with you because I think you obviously raised some great things here. Richard says, are there printouts on the AK website that we can attach to our letters or hand out face-to-face meetings that explain the science of kratom and the aftermarket products? Great question, Richard. I think there's some that are useful in that regard. Some of them are too long to be a one pager, but I think we have some materials up there that you can use, and we'll take a look at it and see if we can put more of those the way it is. Billy Christian, I'm going to recognize you. If we can bring him forward and let him unmute himself, that'd be great. So I'm hoping someone's going to help us on this end. There we go. So Billy, unmute yourself and you've got the floor.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Hey, how's it going? Very nice to meet you. Stop touching it.
Well, nice to meet you too.
One second. It's recording. You're trying. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to weigh in a little bit on all the information that we have on like stuff for this scenario.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know that it was intentional for people that tried to make this 7-hydroxy. They were known and they were told that this is not the correct alkaloid to do extractions at that level. And certain companies did it on purpose, even though they knew um a lot of stuff about it and stuff like that, that it wasn't the right thing to do. And they were doing it to target the industry on purpose and stuff like that. And I think that I know back when they tried to ban kratom in it was like 2016, and everybody went to the courthouses and stuff all at one time and stuff like that. I know that was like extremely effective because there's a lot of stuff they have out right now that they basically are trying to legalize that that they shouldn't be trying to legalize, but yet they're just trying to throw kratom up there to say, oh, this is what you should be fighting against and stuff like that. But at the same time, they're legalizing all these drugs and stuff like that. And so I think that like somehow if we get the information to like Trump office or something like that for him to do it in like an analysis, then I think that they would like actually be able to freeze a lot of this stuff because it's some of the same people that are arguing with him are the ones trying to ban kratom. So another reason why you'd probably want to do it, do an analysis for why are they trying to do this with kratom so bad and stuff like that when they have Mr. Boston's liquor that causes people's organs to, and that's alcohol and stuff. I'm not hating on alcohol itself, but versions like the 99 proof is lethal compared to kratom and stuff like that, as well as, I could go on for all types of other scenarios. And once the people realize and are like actually reviewing the evidence, the ones that are trying to ban this, and then people actually do like a rally, like where we're actually like whatever they did in 2016, where people, because we had to go to the courthouse in Georgia. I didn't make it to Washington, D.C. whenever they tried to ban kratom then, but then we made it to the courthouse, and that did a lot. So I think that, how people went and they all talked and they all went to the courthouse that one time when they tried to ban kratom and stuff like that. So I think that that's like the best move you could possibly do is whatever that is like, the walkout scenario, what we did in 2016, or I don't know if it was like 2014 or not.
It was 2016, and yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely right. You're correct that the deliberate entry into the marketplace by these bad actors was designed to do exactly that. They knew what they were doing. And the best evidence of that is uh, when Vince Sanders was asked by a distributor on a social media post immediately after the ban was recommended on July 29th, 2025. Vince Sanders and the distributor saying, should we take this stuff down? Because it sounds like it's dangerous. Vince Sanders said, no, it's the best advertising we could have. Now, that's not a person who's concerned about the safety that says, oh my goodness, the FDA's determined that my product's dangerous. Maybe I ought to reevaluate. Maybe I ought to rethink this. That's
Yeah.
not a person who's doing that. That's a person who knows what they're doing just for the almighty dollar. So I think that that's true. And I think your point's well taken that the opportunity to advocate for natural kratom leaf plant is obviously in the halls of Congress, in the halls of state legislators, and frankly, in the boardrooms of county and local state council or town councils. That's where we need to be, and we try to be everywhere we can. So thank you for the efforts you've undertaken. We have this opportunity with our fly-in day on June 2nd, and we're going to try to get as many advocates as we can in place to just go around Capitol Hill telling the true kratom story. So please,
Yeah.
if you can make it there, thanks for all of your efforts. I appreciate it very much.
Thank
So
you.
I'm going to get to as many as we can. I'm running out of voice, and as I said, I was diagnosed with pneumonia, and they've given me these antibiotics I've got to complete. But anyway, Glenn says there's only one reason 708 is so popular. It is as close to the drug as they were addicted to, likely heroin. I agree. I think that it appeals to and has the effects of people that are drug seekers, and it may not mean that they're doing it deliberately. In some cases, they are. They're not going to find satisfaction with a natural kratom leaf product, but 7-OH delivers that powerful punch that they're missing. Let's see. Jeff says we're blasting out emails every day. Great, thank you very much for all of that. The David says the biggest difference between 7-OH and full-blown opioid like fentanyl is respiratory depression. Fentanyl is a full agonist at the mu-opioid receptor and recruits the protein called beta-arrestin 2. Yeah, people can read this. I understand that. I think that what is happening is it depends on the potency of the product. And when you get to 7.5 milligram tablets of 7-OH, and then you go to 100 milligrams, when you get into tablets, and David, I understand where you're coming from, but you get into a tablet formulation that requires you to take 1/8 of the tablet, and the tablet's only scored for 4s. There's something wrong with that picture because they know you're going to take the tablet, fast dissolving, that can, at that potency level, deliver the kind of adverse event that likely could cause full-blown opioid respiratory suppression. And the FDA believes that. I understand that maybe it's not that bad, but some of the evidence that the FDA has suggests that it is. And so I think that that's the bottom line. So as we look at this, just look at what's marketing out there. When you go from just the 7-OH that's in a form like natural kratom, and you digest it through your digestive system, again, you're going to assault the liver with high concentrations. But when you bypass all of that with sublingual dissolvable tablets, nonsense. That goes right to your bloodstream. It goes right to your mu-opioid receptors, and it is a full-blown agonist. So I'm sorry if you disagree with that. And David, I'm glad to have this conversation offline with you. We're so late in this call, but I think you make the point that 7-OH is very potent tool for pain, and like any tool, it needs respect and regulation. But for me to call it fentanyl is a scare tactic that ignores the science. Actually, not. I think that when you look, I didn't call it fentanyl. I said that it is like fentanyl in terms of the way it's being marketed. And we would not advocate for, frankly, you wouldn't advocate for fentanyl to be available to the way that 7-OH people are advocating for it, because fentanyl is proven to kill people. And you can't say because it's natural, because it's just a derivative, whatever the arguments that they want to make, and I hear them all over the map, that's not the way it should be done. So I think that we can disagree about some of this, but you can disagree with me all day long. Go to the FDA and 7-OH website and make your case. Make your case that, and you can go to the DA and make your case and see if you are going to sell it. But I continue to believe that the distinction that I was making is accurate, which is no one would recommend that we should allow fentanyl to be on the market, and that's what these advocates are saying. They're saying, oh, we shouldn't be banning 7-OH because if people are using it to some benefit. People use fentanyl for some benefit. It's when they overdose on it, when they get tainted fentanyl. There are all kinds of issues there. So I don't think it's a fair suggestion that I said that it's the same as fentanyl. What I said was that the advocates are acting like we should allow 7-OH because it's helping people. Fentanyl helps people too. And nobody in their right mind would recommend that we just let people make their own decision about fentanyl. And that was a point I was trying to make. And if I didn't make it well, I apologize. Or if you bastardized what I said, shame on you. We can decide when we look at the record as we go back and forth. Misty Brown says she's getting off her butt to go to DC. I hope all of you do. I hope we can all see you there along the way. So that'd be great. So I think that I'm going to have to cut some of these off real quickly. Trevor asks, what will it take to get kratom sold at normal places instead of smoke shops? and that's a Utah-based question, I think, we're going to have to change the law because that was a bad law that was enacted by the misinformation that was generated by the Senator McKell. And he did so knowing it. I mean, this is a guy who literally stood or sat before the health interim committee and described, when asked specifically by Representative Chevalier, whether or not the FDA dose finding study altered his view about whether the natural kratom leaf was different than the 7-OH, and he said, "Oh, that was funded by industry." And then to build more credibility at the end of his testimony, after they had finished, he said, "Oh, Representative Chevalier," he said, "I phoned a friend and confirmed that that was funded by industry." That was a lie. And yet he's never corrected that lie ever to those legislators. So I think that's part of the problem as we're going forward here. We just have to figure out what's going on. So Mary said, please, Mac, I was asking about the negative tension affecting the ban in Michigan. Of course, negative information does elevate the risks. And I think that we just need to fight back with good, accurate information as we go forward. So I think that's as much as I can do tonight because we've reached the I think the 2-hour mark, and frankly I'm beat. So I think that if you have any questions, you can reach out to us and ask them, and we'll try to get back to you. For information about the fly-in, you can reach out to the staff here at AKA. Look on our website, and you can go to protectkratom.org, and you can then fill in whatever question you have there with respect to this. So I think that's where we are. I think, see, is Heidi on here? Do we know? I don't know if Heidi's on. I was going to give her a chance to say something, but she's one of our fabulous advocates. She, along with Laura Romney, who just tirelessly work for what we're doing. So there you have it. Thanks to everyone. And you know, if I was too tough on some of you, I apologize. It's not, well, some people say it is my nature, but I can tell you that that our goals are the same. Oh, Heidi's here, so I'm going to let her. We need to elevate her so she can give us some information here before we quit. Heidi, just unmute yourself and you've got the floor.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes. What did you want me to talk about?
Well, I wanted to give you the chance because I thought I saw you on here, and I think that people generally are asking about how we effectively communicate the science information. As a medical professional, you've been doing this in such a magnificent way. So I thought you might be able to provide some advice on how people can talk with these public officials in terms of how to convince them that the science clearly suggests that natural kratom leaf is far different from synthetic or semi-synthetic or chemically manipulated 7-OH.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you know, obviously, I think, first of all, the most important thing are those personal testimonies and having those be prepared, and how that has really impacted the function in people's lives, so that they understand that this is not a get high product. It's something that actually improves function. And having a printed testimony, and especially having a personal picture on it, even a family picture, I think is very helpful. It personalizes it. As far as the science, you know, I've got, and obviously the AKA has multiple tools, International Plant and Herbal Alliance, that I'm working with Laura Romney. We have multiple information sheets. We have state fact sheets, you know, science fact sheets, etc. And so, you know, I'm absolutely willing to share all those. And we do have the advocacy cheat sheet with evidence-based statements. I think that that's a good thing for everyone to have on hand when they go to talk to their legislators. So I'm, you know, happy to share, you know, any information that people want, and some simple one-page sheets that I think will be very helpful.
That is fabulous. Thank you. And I cannot sing the praises at a higher level than is possible for me, for Heidi and Laura and her team. It's just fabulous stuff that they're doing. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. So should I just say my email out loud, or you want me
Sure.
to?
No, you
Okay.
absolutely can.
All right. It's kind of long. So it's Dr. like Dr. Heidi, Heidi, Sykora, Sykora at plantsandherbals.org.
Great. And if you could put it into the chat side, and because I'm gonna take the last couple minutes just to conclude one thing in response to Lewis. Lewis, in the comment section, says that I'm full of crap, and I cleaned that up. Because of you and the AK, the whole plant is being banned. So a couple of things, Lewis. First off, you wouldn't be able to say that on a 70H if you were saying how great the natural plant is, because they don't let you on there to do that. I have been banned from 70H advocacy discussions. I don't ban people here, and we don't ban people here. So you at least have the ability to express your opinion, and your opinion is now public. But let me tell you the underlying premise here. We had recommended bans on kratom both in 2016 and 2018. It took an enormous effort in order to educate public policymakers as to why that was not the case. Now, fast forward to 2025, when the FDA made and HHS made the recommendation for kratom, 70H, to be scheduled under as a Schedule 1 substance under the Controlled Substances Act. And here's the important factor. In order to schedule, you have to pass the 8-factor analysis. 70H passed that 8-factor analysis. Kratom, natural kratom, does not and has not. And there is a 70H 8-factor analysis that was presented, evaluated by both individual scientists and the FDA to the DEA. And so that science is there as an 8-factor analysis. And I think that it's the same. I think the important thing here is that when you evaluate whether something should be scheduled or not, you can't say that a chemically manipulated and now a absurdly concentrated and dangerous product like pseudodoxil and MIT 8, 10, 12, 16, 18, whatever those numbers are, and then the MGM 15 and 16 that are clearly harmful products are in any way, shape, or form characterized properly as natural kratom leaf products, because they're not. And we are not going to allow the whole thing to get drugged down if we don't step up and say appropriately deal with these chemically manipulated variations of the product. Bottom line. And you don't agree with us, I understand you don't agree with us. But we really need to protect the plant, and we can't do it unless we're willing to fight for the integrity of the plant and not let it be called kratom. Because if the product that you, Lewis, are defending, why didn't they call it a synthetic version or a chemically manipulated version? They called it kratom. They lied to consumers. They deceived consumers. They got them to take a product that they became highly addicted to. Whether it kills people or not, I grant you that that is an evaluation that has to be made by scientists as they evaluate the actual impacts of the product in deaths, whether it's polydrug use or individually 70H products. That needs to be determined by the scientist. But you can't hide behind this comment and say, oh, well, you're just, the fact that you're going after 70H, that's going to ban the whole plant. No, that's the 70H people that are selling that nonsense. And you can see what they say in their advocacy. They say, well, if you're going to ban us, you should ban everything. That we're not saying in any way that a natural levels of 70H are in any way dangerous. We're in fact saying the opposite. What we're saying is that when you chemically manipulate them, they become a threat to consumers. So that's the bottom line. I'll close again. Thanks to everyone for joining us tonight, for your tireless efforts. And thanks to the critics. They refine our thinking. They help us to reevaluate what we're doing. And we're glad to do that. We don't ban people from being here. And that's the bottom line in terms of where we are. So thanks. I'm sorry we have to cut this off. But as I say, we're well over time of the 2 hours that we'd allocated. This was live streamed. It will be available on our website, and you can go back and review it, and you can pick out mistakes that I've made. Love to hear about those because I'd like to correct the record as we go forward. So thanks, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening and certainly for the rest of the week. Thanks so much.